All right. I'm doing this on a small device, so I don't know if I'll be able to see comments or hear you guys very well, but can you hear me? I've got a mic set up. Can somebody just drop a comment and confirm that you guys can hear me okay and there's not too much wind noise? Awesome. Cool. All right, check this out, guys. So I'm all right. So I'm on my way back into town. I've been out kind of exploring this old wagon road, and I came to this spot where there's these springs in here, and I might try to turn the camera around and show you guys a little bit. It's unbelievable how dry it is already this time of year, but I just stopped to have a little snack, having some Fritos, one of my favorites, and thought I'd chat with you guys a little bit, do my usual Sunday Camp Talk live, but I don't know how well it's gonna work out. I've got my iPhone perched up here, so I've got about like 2 bars of LTE. So hopefully it's coming through all right to you guys. So cheers. I'm having a little aloe vera with pear and apple in it. And I've actually been walking around in this area right here. So I've got some finds. I've got a little stash of finds here that I'm going to show you guys some things. There was a, like I said, there's a seep here. And in wetter years, like, it's surprising that it's dry right now. In fact, I'm going to see if I can spin this thing around and show you guys. All right, so there's a lot of glare on the screen, so I can't see very well, but right back there behind me is kind of this little meadow, and this is a little seep in here that during normal times, there's water out here, and then a little further up the draw, there's actually some springs that surface. So that's where I'm at, and because there's water here, let's see. No blue buckets out here. Sorry about that, guys. I was just looking at the comments a little bit to see if there was any comments coming through. I don't know if you guys are, hopefully you're able to see it okay, huh? What's up, Kyle? Doug Carr? Move this back a little bit. Yeah, and it's getting a little chilly out here. I'm hoping the wind noise is not going to come up too much. So I got the sun setting over there. I kind of wish I could show you guys that. It's a little bit overcast, but that sun's looking nice and golden, setting down in the sky up there. Yeah, so I've been out exploring this last couple of weekends. I've been out exploring some of these old roads, trying to find some newer sections of these old wagon roads. And I apologize, I didn't get another video out this week, but I had some late nights at work, and then I've been spending some daylight hours trying to track down some of these roads, but I have been doing some filming. So I've got some videos coming out. I filmed a video today. I did a really detailed look at my load out here in the truck, and and then I've got another trip video filmed that I'm almost done editing too. So hopefully I'll have another trip video out this week for you guys. That was a trip I did in the Jeep. This trip this weekend I'm back in the truck again, and really been enjoying getting it more and more dialed in. But I thought I didn't really have anything super particular in my mind. I did want to talk a little bit about just being out here in this desolate country and stumbling across all this history. I did want to talk a little bit more about some of the things that I look for that indicate, and I'm going to show you guys some things here too, but talk to you a little bit about some of the things I look for to indicate that there's some history in the area. So one of the things that's important to remember, and I know some of you guys have heard this before, but for anybody that's a little bit newer to the live stream, so one of the things that's really really important about when you're looking for historic sites or looking for signs of earlier occupation out here is looking around at the natural environment and looking for things that just stand out, that don't match either the colors or the shapes or the lines or anything like that of the natural environment. So over time, what I get used to doing is, as I'm in a certain area or whatever, I'm familiar with what the trees and the plants and the rocks and all of those things that are naturally there. And then what I'm looking for is I'm looking for anything that kind of stands out outside of that. So, and again, I've got a couple of things here that I'm going to show you guys. Man, I tell you, I'm really enjoying doing this out here in the field. It's not always easy to find a spot that has cell phone reception, and I don't know how long this is going to hold out here, but it is nice. I enjoy hanging out with you guys while I'm out here, actually. So a couple of things, just a couple of business things, as you guys know. Man, I see a couple of super chats, looks like already popped through. Really appreciate that. So I just want to say thank you up front for the people that do the super chats, that contribute to the donate link and the PayPal donate link that's down in the description of all my videos. And then little reminder that there's Coyote Works merchandise available at Lolo Overland Outfitters up in Portland, Oregon. Those are really the three ways for any of you that want to support my channel and don't feel obligated at all. But if you want to support my channel, the super chats on these live streams, direct donations to my PayPal donate, or the Coyote Works merchandise at Lolo Overland. Sorry guys, I kind of was hustling to get back to the rig there, so I got to get myself rehydrated a little bit. So one thing that I found that's pretty cool, I'm going to show you guys. Hopefully you can see this. This is a little tin. It's almost like maybe like a little lip balm container or something like that, but I think it's not so badly rusted. I can't see the signs of any lettering or anything on it, but it's not rusted so bad that I can't get it open. So one thing is that a lot of the old homesteaders out here, sometimes they would tuck money or coins in little things like this. So we're going to open this up together, and we're going to see if maybe there's a folded up 1860s bill or something inside that. Actually, I doubt that, because I don't think this container is that old. It's probably from, I don't know, it's probably no earlier than the 40s, but you never know. There could be a little bit of loot in there. Maybe there's like a, when did Microsoft Corporation start? Maybe there's one of the original Microsoft shares in here, and and we're all going to be wealthy. So we're going to check that out. A couple of things that I look for out here that indicate, and this is really interesting to me, is that at these old homestead sites out here, it's amazing how often I find really ornate old china. Like really beautiful patterns on this, and it's always really interesting to me that, generally speaking, when the the people that homesteaded this country out here, they came to their homestead site via a wagon, and they had to make some choices about what to bring. And one of the things I think is really interesting is that, you know, obviously they had to bring tools, they had to bring, you know, implements for farming, shovels, stuff for tilling the ground, adze, hose, things like that. And then a lot of home goods. But what's interesting to me is how often I find like little pieces of things like that. And it seems like almost every homestead at some point, or not at some point, but at every homestead, every family that came out here to stake a homestead claim brought a few kind of things of beauty along with them. And I think that's just an interesting concept, the idea that no matter how limited on space they were, no matter how far the journey was that they took, they always brought something that was that was precious to them along. And I think maybe that just kind of helped probably take the edge off the harsh life out here. So if you think about it, like they came out here, maybe they got some lumber, some locally milled lumber. They built a cabin out of that locally milled lumber, which would have been cut on a mill that was probably powered by water, a saw that was powered by water. Um, and the timber that they used to make their homestead wouldn't have been perfectly straight or anything like that. So you think about, they wallpapered the inside oftentimes with like newspaper or something like that, but for the most part they were dealing constantly with dust. There was really no way for them to completely seal dust out of their homestead. And this country out here, like right now, there's just this fine powder dust everywhere out here. And you know, we're talking, I don't even know what the date is today, like, but it's not even the end of March yet, and there's just that fine powder billowing dust. So when you were a homesteader, you think about it, and you think about that dust was coming into everything. So everything in your life was dirty, everything was dusty, there was a draft in everything. You know, you think about, oh, I just heard something fly up over there. If it didn't make any noise, I don't think it was a quail. But anyway, so you think about, you're living this life where everything was dirty, everything was drafty, you're going out, you're working in the dust, you have very limited water, right? The homesteaders had very limited water, so for the most part they couldn't take really thorough baths or anything like that. So you think about, that was kind of the life that they lived, basically from sun up to sundown. They were surviving, they were focused on survival, they were getting, let's see how we doing here. You guys still with me, man? I haven't seen any comments roll up in a little while, so hopefully I didn't cut out. But anyway, you think about, no noise equals owl. Nice. All right, you guys are there. Perfect. Yeah, sorry about that. It's just a little sketchy out here with the limited reception. You show you my, do you guys see my little MacGyver up here? That's my cell phone. I had to put it up at a high point, so I got another bar, because when it was down, sitting down here, it didn't have a, it only had like 2 bars. All right, so yeah, so you think about the life that those homesteaders lived, and they, you know, were up at daylight, and they were basically working from the time they woke up. When they weren't eating, they were working, trying to establish, basically meet their basic needs. So they were gathering feed for livestock, or they were milking their one milk cow, or they were protecting their chickens from the coyotes, or whatever. You know, they were probably picking rocks out of a small patch of land that they were trying to grow some dryland wheat on, some winter wheat or something like that. And so it's really interesting to me to think about that being the context of their life, like how much it must have meant for them then at some point to take, like, imagine that's how your life is, and then you have these simple pleasures that you throw in there, these tiny little things like coming back to the homestead in the evening for the evening meal, gathering around the table, having a little, you know, probably something really, really simple, a pot of beans with a couple of chunks of salt pork thrown in it or something like that. But then after dinner, maybe having a cup of tea with a half a teaspoonful of sugar in it or something, because sugar was a pretty precious commodity. And so you got out you got out these couple of pieces of china that you brought with you, and you had this little cup of tea in the evening. And that was just one of those little simple pleasures that helped make the rest of life so bearable for them. And it's interesting to me that I find the signs of that stuff out at many times. I usually always find something of beauty, something precious like that when I really thoroughly look over a homestead site. Now, this place in here where I'm at was, I know there was a homestead site in here because of the the trash and the things I've found here. I did find a couple of the barrel bands around, found some old cans. I'm going to show you guys again. I've talked about this before, but I want to show you guys again. One of the things that I do that helps me get an indication of how old a site is I look for these old tin cans. And you see this tin can has the lead solder. It's closed up with that lead solder in the bottom of it. So also you can kind of see the way the lids are capped on these is different than a modern tin can. I wish I had a modern tin can that I could show you guys too, but I just don't have one with me. But it's a little bit more like the seam on this is how modern tin cans are. And then the seam on this is how the older style ones were. And this one's just rusty enough that I can't see any of the garbage on it. But one of the things that I really keep an eye out for when I'm out cruising these old roads looking for homesteads is I keep my eyes peeled for tin cans. You know, you think about a lot of the food that anybody who was on the move, you know, back around the early 1900s or whatever, canned food was one of the few kind of non-perishable, totally non-perishable long-term foods that you could take. So pretty much every place there were historic routes that got traveled, there's places where you find tin cans along the road. And you find the tin cans where they camped. Oftentimes they're where they camped, or a lot of times you see a tin can and it's your first clue or your first sign that there was some kind of a homestead in the area. So the way I do it is, you guys know I do a lot of map recon, and I kind of try to identify on the map sites where I think there's going to be a homestead, and then I head out into that area and I start looking around for the clues there. And one of the clues that oftentimes is the first thing I find is a tin can. So let me show you a couple other kind of cool little things that I found just around this homestead here. I'm not 100% sure what this is, but I believe it's a roll of thread. It's rusted shut, so I can't get it open, but it looks like there's a spool inside here. So I'm thinking I've seen, oh, yep, that's exactly what it is. Look at that. All right, no thread in it, but that's what that is. No writing anywhere on it, which is a bummer. I love it when I find old cans with the writing, but all right, so mystery solved. That is what that is. I suspected that was the case. So, some old homesteader or cowboy's spool of thread there. Also found this. Let's see. I think, let's see if you guys can, maybe you guys can pause the video later and see what that says. It looks like it says maple on it. It's like that word right there says maple. Maybe like something Asian, carnation, something maple. So anyway, maybe it was maple syrup. God, I just can almost make out. Yeah, just can't quite make out the writing on the side. But something else I thought was is interesting, and I've found these before. And this one is got a little bit of, you can just almost see some of the writing on it, but not quite. Which is such a bummer because I don't know what these are. That's obviously the top off of some kind of a canister. And it's interesting they have this I don't know if that was a, it doesn't look like a lid. It's more like a handle. So I don't know if this was like off the top of a flour container or, yeah, I just don't know what the heck this is. Yeah, it does look like, okay, so Jim Danielson's saying he thinks that it's just a coffee can lid. Doug said maybe a food storage container. A tea tin. Now that's an interesting idea. You can just almost make out I don't know what that says, but you can just almost make out. I almost feel like I see the word pipe. Joel Ruggiero. Hello from Mexico. Wow, man. All right, so something else I found I thought was pretty cool, but you know, obviously you see a lot of this old porcelain stuff around the homesteads. But again, so this I believe is a lid off of a big or you know, porcelain covered tin pot. Now, one cool thing about this is obviously, and then any of these cans that I found out here, one of the things that really tells me that this is a homestead that not a lot of people have kicked around is there's no bullet holes in any of this stuff. So not too many people have been to this one. So that's pretty cool. Oh, boy, I tell you guys, it's cooling off quick out here though. So, supposedly, out in this area that I'm in too, supposedly there was one of the last local battles between the homesteaders or the, I don't think at the time, I don't think it was a cavalry detachment. I think it was actually just local sheriffs or local marshals or something like that. And, but I'm right by a hill. And the hill is supposed to be the site of one of the very, very last battles in our area between the Native Americans and the settlers. And there's a place up there that I was hiking a year or two ago, and I found a couple of the old rimmed cartridges. So those could have been left over from that skirmish back then. Supposedly it was kind of a protracted battle that lasted a couple of days, because the Native Americans were able to hole up in these rock formations up there. So it's just kind of a neat area. Where I'm at is down in the more the flatland where the majority of the homesteads were, and then up in that butte system up there were some springs, but that would have been good hunting. That's where they would have gone up there to go hunting. That's also where the natives hid out, and all the little canyons and rock formations and everything up there. So the story goes, there was a group of them, a small group of the raiding Native Americans that would come down out of those buttes and raid homesteads or raid stagecoaches or things like that, and then they would run back up in the buttes and hide. So so just a little interesting piece of tidbit out here, a little tidbit of history out here. So I feel kind of handicapped here, guys. I can't, let's see if I can see some of these comments here, see if you guys have any questions or anything, because I didn't really have time to pencil out any major topics or anything like that. I thought if nothing else, I'd just log on here and say hi to you guys and chat a little bit, but show you guys the finds there. But let's see if you guys have any questions or any topics you want to talk about. Like I got a little bit more light out here. It's gonna fade pretty fast. So it looks like Dan S is asking if I ever have found any firearms. I I found one rusty old pistol. I actually found it metal detecting. Josh Rue, what's up, my friend? So Paul Phillips is asking ADV with Roscoe. How's it going, man? Okay, couple of questions. I thought I heard one of my Coyote brothers over there. So one of the questions that just flew by was how did I find this site? So this site that I found here, I found by following an old, I actually on an old map there, I found this old road. It was still listed on a 1930 USGS map. So I've been following this old road, different sections of it, slowly but surely. Oh, I started about 2 years ago, but you can't follow it straight through. So I kind of hit one section of it, and then on a different trip, come back, hit another section of it. But slowly but surely, I've been piecing it together. And the thing about these old roads is that way back in the day, when they were, first homesteading this country, you got to think that the mail was carried by Pony Express. Stage was really the only, an actual stagecoach was really the only mass transit, I guess you would call it. And so both of those things, the Pony Express and the stage, they had fairly limited range. They needed stops every so often along the way. So there's a couple of things to know about the old roads. One is that usually somewhere in the ballpark of every 8 to 12 miles or so, there had to have been some kind of there was likely some kind of a mail stop, stage stop, or a place where the Pony Express would change out horses. I think the Pony Express would go like 25 miles in between stops, but a lot of the stages would stop about every 8 to 12 miles or so, depending on the country. So how I find a lot of things is by finding the old roads, the old historic wagon roads or historic old horse routes through the area. A lot of times they follow what even before that were the routes that the natives used to get back and forth in the country. So if you can find old wagon roads or old historic roads and follow those, generally speaking, you're going to find historic sites on there. So that's how I found this particular one. I didn't even know this little spring area in here existed. Doesn't really show on any maps or anything. At least not any modern maps that I have. So I was just following the old road, and when I first found this place, it was a little bit greener in here. So that's how I found this. Somebody else, let's see. Yep, so, Lummox Overland, how's it going, man? I haven't seen any pictures, Lummox Overland, man. I haven't seen any pictures of your camper build for a little while, man. ADV with Roscoe's asking, what's for dinner, man? Well, my friend, nothing as fancy as you're usually cooking up. So far, what I'm having for dinner is some Fritos and some aloe vera water. But I do have one of my all-time favorites with me. We'll see. I'll probably break out a can of gourmet beanie weenies because actually it's going to start getting dark pretty soon, and I'm not exactly sure where I'm at right here. I've got to do a little bit of experimenting around to find the right combination of roads to get myself back out of here. I came from the opposite direction of home, so I came from back that way. My home's that way, so I'm sure I can get through that direction, but I don't know exactly what roads to take. So I probably want to get rolling while I've still got a little bit of light. Plus, I got some pretty gnarly looking clouds coming in, so it could rain. Let's see. I saw another question roll by earlier, and the question was about whether or not I know. I saw that, man. I saw that about your dog, man. So the question is whether or not I keep any of the finds that I find, and for the most part, I rarely ever do. Every once in a while, if I'm on, as you guys know, there's a handful of private ranches that I have permission to be on. You know, every once in a while, if I find something really cool on there and the landowner doesn't want it, I'll keep like a cool arrowhead or something. But for the most part, you know, I keep a few cool old things like to put up on I've got a couple of shelves in my house I like to put old cans on, but for the most part, I don't really keep anything that I find out here. Number one, if I kept everything I found, I would just have boxes and boxes of this stuff all over my garage. But also, it's just kind of more my personality. Like, I like to hunt and I like discovering things. I like exploring and finding things, but I'm not really a hoarder or I don't really like care that much about stuff, like having stuff, right? For me, the thrill is more about finding it, and then, you know, the pieces of the story that it helps fill in, right? The clues about the life. Like, you know, I think about every little piece of thing right here that I found that I just showed you guys tells a bit of the story of what the life was like for these homesteaders. And like, you know, we think about this this lid to this pot. You know, this was a big pot, fairly good sized pot, so that's probably the pot that they boiled their chickens in, that they cooked their stock in, you know. So that would have sat on top of the wood stove, probably inside the homestead in the evenings, you know. While that after dinner, we know that probably the the wife would sit around and sew and mend, and because we have that. We know that they had some nice china, so they sat around and had some tea maybe out of some nice china in the evening. So for me, that's more the thrill, is the pieces of the story that those little artifacts and relics tell. So the truth is that right here, I'm actually right off this little 2-track road. I don't know if you guys can see that. Okay, I'm just kind of parked right off the side of this road right here. So what I'll do is I'll take these things, and where I found them was actually quite a ways back there. So I'll put them back out there, just because that won't make it too obvious that there's a site here for other people to see, right? So hopefully this doesn't sound a little bit weird, but I'm always sort of protective of these sites that I find. So I don't necessarily do anything like to disguise them or hide them, but I also don't try to make them obvious. Like when I find them, if they weren't easy to find, I try to leave them that way, not easy to find. So I won't leave any of these artifacts right here on the road. I'll take them back out there, you know, 150, 200 yards, because the deal is, I mean, probably, I don't know, I bet a couple of dozen people a year for sure drive down this road. Of all the people that drive down this road, there's not a single beer can, not a single modern, you know, not a cigarette butt, nothing back there where I found all of these relics and stuff. So, you know, I don't know, maybe one person every 5 or 10 years ever even realizes that that kind of history is right back there. So I try to keep it that way. Just the more people that find stuff like that. I mean, most of you guys, my audience, like, I don't mind sharing sites, especially like the group of you that are on these live streams and stuff like that. You know, I don't mind sharing a lot of stuff with some of you, because I know you're all good, solid people too, and you guys appreciate the environment and the history out here and stuff like that too. But not everybody's like that, and and I don't always know who is going to stumble across those sites out there. And there has been a few places that, just by virtue of the fact that I covered them on my videos, ended up getting quite a bit of traffic to them over time. And so anyway, I'm always a little protective of it. So that was a really long, drawn out way of answering the question, which is I don't really keep much of the stuff that I find out here. Yeah, and Doug, that's it, man. For the most part, it's leave no trace. Now, I will tell you, there's a couple of things that what I I used to do a long time ago. I'll tell you guys this story, and every once in a while I stumble across one of them. So way back in the day, oh man, probably in my 20s or whatever, there was a period of time when I would head out into the desert country camping. And what I used to do is I used to get a lot of my camp cookware. I would buy just secondhand dishes at like a thrift store, a Neat Repeat. So, or we had one in town called the Neat Repeat, but any thrift store. So I would buy like my pans, anything that I cooked on. And then what I would do a lot of times is I would leave a pan at my campsite after I left my campsite. And and so over the years, I had all these campsites that I'd camped at out in the middle of the desert that had these pans at them. And then, and I don't know, it was just kind of my thing. I thought it was, number one, it was kind of my way of making sure that I had a pan there if I was ever in that part of the country and camped again. It was kind of my initial rudimentary approach to, you guys know that I've done some work with some bug out caches, leaving some caches out in the backcountry. And so that was kind of way back in the day, my informal way of approaching that is every time I would camp someplace, I would leave a couple of pieces of critical camp gear there. Let's see. Yeah, Dirt Bandit Outdoors. I was just reading your comment about the relics and stuff. And yeah, and Jason Perry saying, yeah, he tries to leave just footprints in. For the most part, that's how I feel too. Footprints and tire tracks, and even the same thing in this video that I just did. DJ Hobbies and Overlands, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, there's so on that note, I feel the same way. Tire tracks and footprints for the most part is what I try to leave behind. The only exception to that nowadays is I do have a few bug out caches out there around, but that's a little bit different scenario. But the other exception to that is sometimes I will leave my fire reflective walls up, especially if it's someplace that I think I'm going to camp again, or if it's a place that other people might want to camp at too. So as some of you know, a few of you that have reached out to me and I've sent you like a pin for a camp spot, like that's usually a camp spot where I already have a fire pit there. And so that's the only other thing I'll do. And having said that, you know, kind of my mindset is that it's just rocks. Like if it doesn't get used for a couple of years, like those rocks will just get scattered by the cows or the wildlife or whatever, you know, just the freezing and the thawing and the weather. So, I mean, even a fire pit, if left to its own devices, disappears after a few years out in this country. So on that note, a couple of other things, and because it is springtime right now, but even as far as the leave no trace thing, there's a couple of other things that I think are really important. And one is that because I'm exploring in a vehicle a lot of times, like this time of year, I pay attention, especially this time of year, but really any time. I also am really cautious about when trails or roads are wet, or like little riparian meadow areas, things like that. When they're wet, like I really try not to tear things up. And I think that's really important too, is like not, number one, because oftentimes when you tear up the roads out here, when it's muddy, you leave deep ruts and stuff in them. Once that dries, like, I mean, the soil out here in some places is almost like concrete. So you put those ruts in it, and that just makes that road terrible from that day forward. And so then oftentimes that's me. If I put ruts in a road, I'm just going to have to come back and drive across those ruts over and over and over again. So I'm just punishing myself, for one. But number two, it's just kind of a trail etiquette thing, is not to tear up the trail, not to tear up meadows, things like that. There's really, you know, in certain areas, like there's places where out in this country where the trails will disappear and you're not even sure if you're on the trail or not. And for the most part, as long as you're not spinning your tires, as long as the ground's not soft or anything like that, for the most part, you won't hurt anything doing that. We might actually have a little bit of a storm coming in, guys. So it'll be interesting. The wind's starting to pick up a little bit and it's getting a bite to it. All right, what are the questions we got, guys? Yeah, man. All right, Lynn Hecker, Silver City. I want to get down there one of these days. All right, what other questions, topics you guys got, man? You got to keep me talking so I don't get chilly out here. Sounds like I hear somebody way off in the distance shooting. You know, one thing that okay, how often do I run into other people out here? How about the time you and the raptor got stuck? Oh man, all right. So let me see if I can remember these. So I might have to make a little note for myself in the. So somebody wanted to ask about my thoughts on the current gun control stuff. So I will tell you guys real quick kind of how I feel about that. So remind me if I forget. And then another question that popped up there was how often do I run into people where I'm at? So most of the time where you guys see me on my trips, I never run into other people. It's really really rare. As most of you guys know, I really am seeking out kind of the most remote, most kind of difficult, off the beaten path places left in Oregon to get to. So 90% of the time, once I get off of the, whatever major gravel road that I take off of and head into the backcountry, usually I never see another person until I come back out. And there's times, I mean, you guys have seen videos of me where I'm on 2, 3, 4 day trips, never see another vehicle, never see another person. So that's the vast majority of the time. Now, like on this trip right now, I was out in a really remote area earlier. Now I'm kind of working my way back. Where I'm at right now, I'm only about 30 miles or so from the town that I live in. Actually, maybe not even quite that far. So this area where I am right now, I could potentially run into people. It's relatively easy to get to from town. So I wouldn't be surprised if I ran into someone here, but this is not a place that you guys would see me spending a lot of time at on a video. There's still a couple of little spots like this that are relatively close to home where there's some little pockets of history, kind of pockets of country that have some good history in them that are just tucked away enough that even though they're relatively close to town, there's still some cool exploring to do. So I've got just a small handful of places like this left that I can come out. Just, like this place would be a place that I could come out to and just, if I had a couple of hours or whatever and kick around. So here I might run into people. In fact, I did pass another vehicle a little while ago, and every once in a while I can hear a vehicle off in the distance. I don't know if it's the same one working around out there, but somewhere within a half a mile of me or so, there is somebody else out there. So that's kind of the story on that. My goal is always to go places where I'm not going to run into other people out there. For me, the definition of a perfect trip is a trip where the only people that I see is me or anybody that I bring along with me on the trip. Somebody asked, I'm sorry I didn't see the username, just asked what percentage of the lands that I'm on are private land versus public land. I would say of what you guys see in my videos, probably about 70% of the time I'm on public land, 30% of the time on private land. Used to be a little bit more, but one of the really big ranches that you guys have seen some old videos of, they had a bunch of lumber mill sites on it and things like that. Actually it was somebody that I really, really appreciated, really shared a love for history, and jeeping with Jen and John, thank you guys. But he died last year, and so with that property, I no longer have permission to go on that. I don't know, maybe at some point that that I will get access to that again. I don't know, but but that went away. So that probably I did, I don't know, every third or fourth or fifth trip or something like that. I was usually out on that place. So now I would say it's about 70% of the time or so I'm on public land. I feel like I missed a couple of questions that shot by there, so just shoot them again. Oh, perfect. So somebody's just asking, do I run a signal booster, like a Wii Boost or anything like that? I don't. I'm just starting to get to know a few people that do. Okay, Oregon Mike's asking if oh, thanks. Dirt Bandit reminded me of the gun control issue. Oregon Mike was asking me if I still run that 361X camera. So that camera was actually provided to me by Free Spirit Recreation, and I took that back to them a while back because they had some filming to do with it. It was kind of cool. I definitely would say that I probably won't buy one personally, that 360-degree camera, because the editing is a little bit more time consuming on it. Because it's filming 360 degrees when you edit it, you kind of have to look at it from all different angles and pick what angles you want. And then so it's a little more time consuming to edit. So I don't know that for me, with as much time as I already spend editing, I don't know if the cool factor of the shots is really worth the extra time that it takes. So I probably won't rush right back out and get one. Yeah, it's I don't know. Still Here said something about cold, and I don't know if he was looking at me. Well, for your Jeep, you should look into the Cooper Discover ST Pros. You know, I'm not sure if who it was, but I saw somebody put those on their Jeep on Instagram too, so I was actually kind of thinking about those. Yeah, DJ Hobbies and Overland is saying, yeah, that 360 was really cool, but I try to keep my filming, I have to try to keep it somewhat simplified because, you know, I already have film off of a GoPro, off of my main camera, and off of a drone usually, and then sometimes even some clips like off of my cell phone and stuff, and maybe even my iPad. A lot of times I film on my iPad when I'm up in my rooftop tent. So, you know, I'm trying to find that balance between not making my editing so complicated that it makes it too long before I get videos out, right? Like already, you know, it's hard for me to put out as much content as I know you guys want to see. So, you know, I try to like find that balance between having enough cool shots and footage to make it interesting to watch, but also not making it too complicated to edit. Oh, somebody said they are called the STT Pros. Yeah, and JL2 Off-Road is saying he likes to keep it simple but high quality, and that's my goal. I don't know how effective I am at it. Yeah, definitely. So somebody just asked about new t-shirts on Lolo Overland. Yes, we're definitely going to be doing some new t-shirts. In fact, I've been playing around with some different designs. I don't know if you guys remember, but the logo that's the watermark down in my YouTube videos, the old school original Coyote Works logo, real similar to the one that came out on the first t-shirt. Or wait, yeah, I think we did do that on the first t-shirt. I really want to do kind of an old school, really simple Coyote Works simple logo shirt, a little bit more of a cotton shirt. Something that's a little bit more designed to be just more of a rugged backcountry shirt, t-shirt to wear. I also would like to do a long sleeve t-shirt, so we're working on those. 4XL, listen, man, so somebody just asked about t-shirts in 4XL. Listen, if you shoot a message, DM on Instagram, Daniel, my buddy Daniel, my brother over at Lolo Overland, man, he will hook you up. If you need a special size or something, even if we have to do like a one-off shirt or something, man, we'll get you one. We'll get you one. We have the ability to do some pretty cool stuff in-house. So sometimes, you know, I mean, maybe it costs a little bit more, but if nothing else, man, we can hook you up with a one-off. Okay, so I got two things. Somebody wanted me to tell the story about getting the Raptor stuck, and I see text pats on here, so so I'll probably tell that story. It's not a great story, but it was a fun little adventure. Oh, make sure I don't lose my wallet here. That was a fun little adventure. But first, really quick, okay, and again, man, see, this is where the super chats are really super cool that you guys do. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I feel about the whole gun control thing here, and this, for having this conversation, man, this is gonna just blow the monetization away on my video. But again, man, this is where I really appreciate the fact that you guys support these live videos with the super chats, because that really frees me up to be able to talk about anything. So here's the deal, and I am going to do a one of these Camp Talk lives where I really want to dive in deep and talk to you guys about guns and how they tie into the culture and the heritage and the history of not only of our country, but of this area in particular where I live. But here's how I basically feel about gun control, right? Is I feel like gun control is a is not an effective way to attempt to curb violence in our society, right? So I believe in everything that I've ever studied or read, up to and including going all the way back to studying criminal justice and in school and everything, is that people's proclivity for violence is not related to the tools they have at hand, right? So there are good people and there are bad people, and there are good people sometimes that turn bad, and I suppose there are occasionally bad people that turn good. But at the end of the day, you have a certain percentage of people in society that are going to have a proclivity or a propensity to be violent. And that dynamic has existed since the beginning of time, right? Since human beings were able to pick up rocks and sticks, there's been a certain amount of people that have had a propensity of this criminal behavior or violence towards other people. No lack of tools or infusion of effective tools have ever really changed that dynamic, right? So it's my personal opinion that the whole notion of controlling the tools that people have available to work with in hopes that will affect the amount of violence in society is an ineffective way to approach that. Just my personal opinion. I get that there's a lot of people that feel differently. That's just my personal opinion. I feel like if we really wanted to reduce the amount of violence in our society, we would look at other things like, where is their violence? Where does it come from? I think there's a lot of other factors like poverty and education and influence and upbringing and who your influencers and mentors and role models are in life. And I think there's a whole bunch of other factors that affect a person's propensity for or not for violence. So here's the thing, what it comes down to for me is, like, I'm a good dude, right? And I carry a gun all the time. And here's the thing, the only reason that I'm ever going to use a gun in violence is going to be to defend my life or defend the life of another person, right? So the thing with gun control is basically based on this premise or this idea that if I have a pistol that only holds 10 rounds of ammunition, I probably won't be violent with it. But for some reason, if I have a pistol that has a magazine with 15 rounds in it, I'm probably more likely to be violent. That's part of the assumption that people make, right? The other assumption people make is that somehow, if I make a decision to be violent, that I have the ability to create more damage if I have 15 rounds than I have 10 rounds, right? So when we get into that whole argument, we're splitting hairs, right? The vast majority of the people in our country that have been killed with firearms have been killed with firearms with a street value of less than $100. Like over time, you know, they're cheap handguns. The vast majority of them are handguns. For years and years and years, they were primarily revolvers. Now, finally, semi-automatic pistols have gotten almost as common as revolvers, so that's happening more. So the thing is I think that if you're a good person, you can be trusted with anything, right? If you're a good person, you're no more dangerous with 15 rounds than you are with 10. You're no more dangerous with an AR-15 than you are with a bolt-action Remington 700. You're no more dangerous. Here's the thing is, if you're a good person, you can put me at the in the gunner's seat of an Abrams tank, and society is in no more danger than if I'm walking down the street with a Glock in my appendix carry holster like I have right now, right? At the end of the day, there's good people and there's bad people. So I just feel like the whole idea of gun control is a flawed idea. It's not going to make people more, it's not going to make society or people more safe at all. And there's a whole host of other reasons why it's just a bad idea. The most important of which, or one of the most important of which to me, is just the fact that millions and millions of people really enjoy shooting. And like me, I mean, yes, I carry a gun. Yes, I believe strongly in having the ability to be able to defend myself and defend the people I love, or defend people in my community, or really defend anybody good with a gun. I believe very strongly in my right to do that, and not only my right, but my responsibility to do that, right? But outside of that, shooting for me is like my golf, right? Like my going out to one of my quarries up in the mountains and setting up some steel targets and running some drills with my handguns, with my AR-15. I mean, that's like golf to me, right? Like that's a skill that you're developing. I'm outside, I'm moving, it's fun, it's challenging, you know, it involves gear, you know, it's like all the stuff that we think is cool, right? It's like it's all the cool guy stuff wrapped into one hobby, right? Like, so I don't know. So as an American, it's that right to pursue happiness and pursue something that I love is, you know, if you want to infringe on that right, I think you have to be able to, number one, demonstrate how it really is going to positively impact the greater good of society. And I also think that it's not a, you can't say, okay, if we could save even one life by making guns disappear, we should do it. Because there is a price to freedom, right? And so, you know, and this is where I get a lot of backlash from a lot of people a lot of times. But basically, you know, freedom isn't free, right? And so, yeah, when we're free citizens and we're able to make choices, oftentimes there's a downside to that. And you know, it's like we have cars on the freeway that go faster than 60 miles an hour and people die as a result of that. But we're willing to make that choice because the vast majority of people just enjoy them, and it's not an issue. All right, wow, that sorry guys, I did not mean to go off on that for so long. I feel like there was another topic out there that somebody wanted to. There was another question that I might have missed. Mark, what's going on, my friend? How's it going? All right, I see some stuff going back and forth about the the Raptor, getting stuck in the Raptor. All right, so this is a quick little story. So you guys probably all know Tex Pat on here. I call him Raptor Don. Really one of the coolest dudes in the world. Like, I met Don. I was gosh, I don't know. I think I was at work, or I don't even remember, but he sent me a message, and I believe he had just bought this Raptor pickup truck and had watched my YouTube channel, had watched my videos, and Don, please chime in if I get this wrong at all, but basically had been watching my videos, was a software guy, worked up in, you know, a large metro area, but wanted to get out and do some camping and stuff. And So he messaged me and wanted to meet and wanted to know if I would show him where a campsite is. And so I met him in Primeville, in the town where I live. He rolled into town in his Raptor, and oh, actually, it was the coolest thing too, because I'd never ever driven a Raptor, and I've always thought they were like one of the coolest trucks out there. In fact, I still think sometimes about getting one. So Don shows up in town with his Raptor, and he's like, "Hey man, you want to drive it?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I'll drive that Raptor." And so we took a quick drive around. So to this day, that's the only time I've actually ever driven a Raptor, but I thought it was a super cool truck. Really liked it. Anyway, hung out, had lunch. We shared a meal together, and then I can't remember if I took Don out in the woods to a spot or just gave him directions, or but I think he was camping for a couple of days. I think I might have taken him to a spot where he spent the first night, and then maybe he did or didn't go on to another spot. I don't remember. But anyway, that was kind of the beginning of a really good friendship. Like, I just think he's a really cool guy. The more that I've gotten to know him, the more that I've just really come to appreciate what a good dude he is. And he's been real helpful with a couple of the Coyote Works group overland trips. We've gone on a couple of trips together, and he's a hell of a camp cook. So he came over, and it was in the springtime, and it was that, I think maybe about this time of year, maybe just a little bit earlier, and it's that time of year when it's pretty sketchy around here. And so we took off out in the desert, and I was in my Jeep, and he brought his Raptor, and I wanted to take him and show him this cave. And so we're cruising down these roads, and they're pretty muddy and everything, and we turn off of the main road on this little side, like 2-track road where where there's really no way. What happened was we started going down this little road, and it started getting soft, and we started sinking. But the problem was, like, you couldn't really get off this little 2-track road. It was so rocky and gnarly in there. But there was just this massive, gnarly mud. So we finally get to where basically the road like ends at a fence, and we've been going for, I don't know, maybe like a half a mile. And basically what the situation is, it's that situation where as long as you keep moving, you're okay. But like, if you stop, you're going to be in trouble if you lose your momentum. Well, we get to the end where this road just kind of ends, and there's a fence there, barbed wire fence, and we can't go through it. So I'm in the lead, so I start making a big loop out through there, come back around so that Dawn can go behind me, right? So I make a big loop, and I come back on our tracks like this. Well, when I hit back on our tracks, I felt like I was pretty good to go, so I stopped. Well, Dawn's now kind of following my tracks to come around. Well, I think what happened was, in part, is it was just this oozy chocolate fudge mud, like just down. Like I was dragging the axles of my Jeep on the mud. It was so bad. So we spun around, and then so Don's going around, and all of a sudden he just starts sinking, and he's going slower and slower and slower, and he gets to this point where he's trying to turn. Oh, I got an airplane up there. It's actually flying pretty low. He's probably checking on me. So anyway, so Don, it's that moment of, it's inevitable, where I'm just watching him go slower and slower and slower, and then all of a sudden he is just spinning, right? Like he's just sitting on his frame, and his tires are just spinning in the mud. So we're like, okay, no big deal. I got a snatch strap in the Jeep, so we'll just hook up to him and pull him out of there. So we back up, we get a snatch strap on him, and I start pulling ahead, and I come against the end of the snatch strap, and as soon as I hit the end of the strap, like, my Jeep just sinks. Well, we undo the strap, now my Jeep's stuck. It was just enough when it hit the end of that strap, it was just enough that that's all it took to get my Jeep to sink that last little bit, and now it's sitting on the frame. So now we have my Jeep sunk, Don's Raptor sunk out there, and we are in the middle of nowhere, right? The other thing about it is, like, Don has this really cool winch on his truck, but the problem is there's no trees anywhere close to where his truck is. So the first thing we do is we get my Jeep out, which ends up being quite a little ordeal in and of itself. So we get, I think I had 4 traction boards, which I always recommend this time of year is if you're gonna have recovery tracks, carry 4 of them. So I get back in my Jeep, I lock it up, front and rear lockers engaged and everything, and I cannot pull out. So we drag the traction boards down, get shoveling, sink the traction boards in. I think I drive up on the traction boards, sink the Jeep again, and now we got 2 of the traction boards like buried. We're able to get like 2 of them out and get them back in front of the tires. We finally get my Jeep out and up the road. And now we just have the Raptor stuck, but we know we're not going to snatch it out with my Jeep at this point, right? So we go back and we run Don's winch line all the way out, and there's this one little tiny juniper tree that's about that big around that, I mean, basically I think what we did was, I think we took like a tree strap and wrapped it around it, or maybe we took like my snatch strap, but anyway, between Don's winch line and like a static line or a snatch strap or something, we got from his truck to that tree. And so we got the winch line hooked up, but as soon as like the slack went out of the winch line, it pulled that tree over. Thankfully though, it pulled that little tree, juniper tree, over like this, and the winch line was still holding. And slowly but surely, man, Don's truck just started inching across there. And I bet we had to winch that thing like, I don't know, 70 yards or something like that. I mean, it was a long ways we had to winch it. And every once in a while we would like let a little slack out of the line, try to get the truck to go, and it just would not go. It was like once it got stuck, then it's just like pushing mud. We couldn't get it back up on top of the mud. So I don't even know how long. I mean, we must have spent a couple of hours there getting that truck out, and then we never did recover a couple of my traction boards. We left them in there, but it was pretty cool. Like a week later, 2 weeks later after that trip, I got a package, and it was a couple of new Max tracks that Don had sent me. So that was pretty cool. And then I don't know that we ever did even get to the cave. I think by the time we got the rigs all unstuck, we were like running out of time and needed to head into camp. But that ended up being a pretty cool trip because we got out onto some flats where it was really wet. And then we had to like leapfrog across these. We'd come to these areas where you'd look out in front of us, and all there was is water as far as you could see. Like we'd talk about it, and pretty soon, like, I gotta hand it to Don, like there were several times when he was like, well, you know, I'll go, I'll try. And like there were a few times, man, when we would just hit those stretches of water at like 40 miles an hour, just hoping we would hydroplane across them and not sink. And we never did get stuck again after that. But this was actually always remember that trip. That was a pretty fun trip. That was one of those that had just enough little extra element of danger and adventure that it was pretty cool. Yeah, so let's see. Off-road ham. Oh man, 2A Overland is saying it's good to see the stream in the field, man. It's good to be doing it in the field. It's a little tricky. It's a little tricky finding spots out here that have good enough cell phone reception to do it. Usually where I'm at, there's just not, but I kind of made a point of trying to get to a place today, so I might try to do this a little bit more. If you guys, let's see. Oh, Josh Rue is saying he's been using Webfoot cellular. Oh, Weeboo cellular amplifiers. And they make a noticeable difference. Actually, that's good feedback because I've heard kind of mixed. I've heard some people say they've had really good luck with them, and some that have been a little bit disappointed, but they may just be kind of expecting too much out of them too. Sarah says they need coyote morale patches. The people have spoken. All right, well, make sure we tell Daniel that. Actually, I think he was working on patches. All right, everybody say Oregon Mike says what Sarah said. Everybody else is saying that too, so All right, so we'll get some patches coming your way, guys. Well, I tell you, man, this has been really fun, but I'm losing my light fast, and like I told you guys, I need a little bit of light to start navigating myself out of here. At least it'll be much easier if I have a little light. So we're coming right up on the 70-minute mark, man. So Sammy Sam's heading to Heart Mountain. I love that area out there. Yeah, definitely flood Daniel's emails. All right, guys, man, I just want to huge thank you guys for the super chats. That was awesome. Really enjoyed this visit out in the field with you. I don't know, man, I'm just having an awesome Sunday afternoon, and this is just the icing on the cake to actually be sitting up on the tailgate of my grandpa's truck, having a little snack, chilling with you guys for the last little bit of the day. And now I'll throw my gear back in the truck and have a nice little drive back on into town, and look forward to having a warm shower and everything. So I hope you guys are all doing something you really enjoy with the rest of your Sunday evening, man. As always, I appreciate the support. It's been good to see you guys on here. I'll get busy. I'm thinking actually I'll get another hour or two of editing in tonight, and hopefully I'll have a couple more videos out for you guys tonight, or this week anyway. So man, guys, oh, and perfect timing, my low battery indicator just kicked in. So that's all for this one, guys. Until the next adventure, Coyote Works out. Oh man, Oregon Mike is like brutal. He just put Daniel's phone number on there. You guys are gonna blow it up, man. Frank, man, thank you, sir. Bruce. Odie Slim, man. Later, Scott. All right, you guys, have a good evening, man. Thank you.